Welcome back to the Daniel and Daniel show. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about the mistakes we've made in business. And we have a few stories about that, whether they were business related mistakes, how we handled other things in our lives during business. We're going to talk to you a little about that. And we would love if you guys could actually subscribe to our channel to get the rest of our episodes. So if you go to danielshow.co, it'll take you right to our YouTube channel where you're watching this video. Lead up right with your big story. What was one of the biggest mistakes you've made?
Oh my goodness. So the one of hundreds of mistakes that I've made. So when you're starting out a business, or when I was starting out my business, there was this anxiousness that I just wanted my brand to be a lot bigger than it really was at the time. And so I started thinking about ways of distributing my product, which was tea. So one thing I did in the early stages of Tea by Daniel is I partnered with a lot of other retailers. So I started on consignment basis, giving my product to other shops. So there was no money transaction. It was just, here's my tea. If you sell something, then I'll get a cut. And I figured, you know what, this is a great way to get myself into, stores and places that I probably couldn't get into myself.
Some type of distribution, right?
Exactly. So I was thinking, here's a cool distribution channel. Let's do consignment in a bunch of stores and cafes. Wrong. So one of the things we were really big on is building our brand and establishing ourselves. But if in the early stages you take your product and your brand, which is so fragile at that point, and you're giving it out to people who really don't know anything about your brand,
putting it in the hands of someone else.
Exactly. It's like taking your baby and saying, here, babysit before you even get to know the baby. Right. So it was so dangerous because here I am one way saying, here's my product, this is what it is, this is what we represent. We're all about quality, educating our customers on our teas and everything like that. But then you go to that shop where our tea is, you get no information, they don't know where it started, what it is. And now there was this break in the brand. So there was no consistency. So I found that was happening a lot. Like people are saying, I'm getting this experience with Tea by Daniel, the actual Tea by Daniel, but when I see your products here, there's a huge kind of miscommunication there. That was one. And then also there was one instance in a cafe where we never saw any of the money from consignment. So there was that whole trust issue with putting your products in someone's hands. I didn't even really know about business at the time. One of these owners closed down and took all of our products with them. And there goes tons of inventory. So I learned that maybe I should grow my child up, my business up, and make sure it's ready, it's 18 years old and it's ready to be on its own before I put it in the hands of somebody else.
And how long did you think that it took you to kind of realize that this wasn't going to be working out? Obviously there was that issue where they closed up shop, right?
After, it took a good, I'd say a good 5-6 months of trying putting our brand in other people's hands. A good, half a year. And that instance was kind of all right, I think we need to rethink this. How can we distribute maybe find our own channels and our own forms of distribution. And then we started looking into that, e-commerce sites, our own storefront, or just being at events and trade shows where we have complete control of the product.
And it's not really considered, a mistake if you're going to be learning from it, right? And you're going to...
That's the good thing about mistakes. We are here talking about the mistakes we've made in starting our business, but these mistakes are those setbacks that we talk about that actually propel us farther ahead. I say that like 100 times, but that's really what it is. So.
Exactly, and they help you they're feedback almost, right? When you put something out there, you have to see what happens and it comes back to you,
100%.
Either a positive way or a negative way, and you know how to adapt. If you're not adapting, then that's where you fail,
the mistake.
Right?
Exactly.
For me, I have a number of different stories. So I work directly with clients, right? So it's not so much retail, but there's a few different issues early on. Pricing. So I transitioned from a freelance designer, as I mentioned in one of the other episodes, to running a studio. And the business model is very different, right? When you're a freelancer, you keep all of the money. And it's your hours and you have a lot more control of the process. But with a studio, you have to manage a project, there's creative direction, there's other team members involved that are contracting different services.
More sharing out,
Right, and some of the projects are obviously larger scale. So the biggest thing was kind of keeping that mentality of pricing too low and pricing as a freelancer taking that over to the studio model and realizing that in the end, if I'm not doing the actual design work, there was no money left for me as the owner because I'm paying the contractors, right?
Right. Okay.
So earlier on, that was a big mistake, which is pricing too low, but also pricing for a previous business model, right? Because they're different clients, it's a different model altogether.
Was it a smooth transition, or did you find it kind of difficult to actually get to that?
So the reason it was difficult, or not difficult, but slow, is because I was coming from a freelancer, so all of my contacts saw me as Daniel, the graphic designer, or Daniel, the web designer.
Right.
And so if I'm pushing them into this new model, it's very difficult because they're not going to pay, 3 times the price for the same thing,
just
right?
Because, yeah.
Exactly. So that was definitely one of the issues starting off. And another one that you can set in any business, any service-based business, is what expectations you're setting. So they know they're going to get an end product, but there's a lot along the way that can happen, right?
What goes into the end product?
What goes into the product? What are the timelines like? What's the communication going to be like?
Right.
Are we going to be talking on the phone every day? Some clients actually expect that, right? Or they need that contact with you. They want to know what's happening, right? Whereas others understand that the process takes 3 or 4 weeks and we're going to be in touch through email when something happens.
When you say understand, did you have to educate your customers on what goes into why you're pricing them what you're pricing them?
Yes. So showing them the pricing model and showing them the process. What's big is that some of our corporate clients, they've already hired, several web developers, several designers.
So they kind of have that feel.
But for new entrepreneurs, you've never hired someone to make you a website.
Right.
You've never had a logo design, so you don't know how that process is going to work.
Right.
So one of the biggest mistakes earlier on was not educating them on that process and explaining the value and the amount of team members that goes into it and the hours that go into it. So those are a couple of mistakes. Again, expectations is a big thing with any business. That's something you couldn't control. The expectations when you had third-party people selling your products as well.
Yeah.
And with services, it's a big thing because you could get your deposit, but if they don't see what they think they're going to be getting,
there's going to be that mistrust, that miscommunication, and then they feel like, I didn't get the value that I paid for.
Right, and even though everyone meant well, they might not see that value. So I guess those are a few mistakes that we've made. Mine were a little bit more general, but it does happen in every client story. There's something to learn from. And again, it's not a real mistake, it's not a real failure unless you haven't learned from it and changed it. So
get used to making them, because that's what's going to teach you how to be an effective business owner and a business leader. You got to know those mistakes, get those bandages on those wounds, and then run your business.
Exactly. Thanks for watching, guys. Again, remember to subscribe at danielshow.co.
See you later, guys.
I'm Daniel.
And I'm Daniel.
We want you guys to join us at danielshow.co
for business tips, entrepreneurship advice. We're going to make things simple for you. We're going to break it down.
To watch our videos, and don't forget to subscribe. We want you guys to join us